Well, good morning. Welcome to All Falcons. I'm Scott Kennedy. This is Nick Kendall. We are with you every Wednesday, and we may do a little more here before too long. And it looks like Nick just turned his lights on. Good morning out in Seattle. It's probably still dark there,
Oh,
but
it'll be dark for a bit.
it could be dark for a bit, and then it stays light until 11 o'clock at night. At least when it feels like it, like
In the
that
summer.
whenever I'm out there.
In the winter, not so much. It's dark here.
You get about 3 hours of daylight
Yeah.
out there. But we're going to talk some Falcons. We're going to review a little bit a very good, well-played game against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that the Falcons, as depleted as they are, should have and did win. And we're going to take a look at the Tampa Bay a little bit. And just because it's our nature as both of fans of the draft and the GMing and process, Nick and I will talk a little bit about building the Falcons. We'll talk a little bit about, Cordero Patterson's free agency, Calvin Ridley and his contract, the cap issues, the line issues, et cetera, et cetera. But first, Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Starting to get excited. Going to be heading home back to Iowa for the first time in like 18 months, 2 weeks from today. So excited to do that. And it's December. So love Christmas. It's a good time of year. And man, really loving. I have a foreboding, like, dread and anxiousness for this weekend because both my teams are probably going to get shellacked, unfortunately. But like, there's the two of the biggest games that either of these teams have played in half a decade. Iowa in the Big Ten Championship and Denver going on the road for the first place in the AFC West at Kansas City.
See, I learned this in college. If you have a chance, you're nervous. There is a certain calmness in utter doom. So I wasn't ever nervous. It's like I have no chance to pass that test tomorrow. None. I'm completely unprepared. No chance. I'm calm. No chance. It's when you got a chance that you could go one way or the other that you get nervous. So, as Atlanta sports fans, we don't get nervous very often because we don't expect a whole lot. We're nervous, when it's 5-0 in Game 6 of a deciding World Series. I was nervous at 7-0 with 2 outs in the 9th inning. How are we going to blow this? Please no. But coming through on that. So got some folks coming in the chat already. Peter's already here. The Falcons won. Yes, they did. And they did it fairly convincingly against a bad Jacksonville team that is, what are they, 2-8 now, 2-9, have 2 wins on the season. But, that means they've beaten somebody 2 times. Dick Lawrence coming in. Oh, I know who's excited about this weekend coming in, Alabama and Georgia. I saw the ACC championship game, which draws terribly anyway, is Pitt and Wake Forest. There might be 25 people in the stands. That's one of those where they need to go like the MLS route and just have it alternate between East and West or North or South or Coastal or whatever they call their divisions and make it a home game. Good Lord, you can't draw those teams to a neutral crowd. Make it a home game. Play it at Wake Forest or play it at Pitt, and you'll sell it out. You cannot play that game at a neutral field. Anyway, the SEC championship game is going to be lit. They'll probably close schools again like they did last year.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. I'm a college football psychopath, so I'm actually excited for the ACC championship game because Kenny Pickett having to go toe for toe with oh man, his name escaped me, but Wake Forest has put up points like nobody this season. So they'll really put it on him to have to go throw for throw, which is big for the evaluation process.
And hopefully they'll travel. I mean, it's not two of the biggest fan bases is the problem, but they're also, this is new to them. So, hopefully they'll travel, but a good traveling Wake and a good traveling Pitt might be 5,000 or 6,000 each.
Yeah.
So if you drop them, I don't even know if they've moved that game to North Carolina. It was in Jacksonville, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
In that big stadium. It looked like, during the game, it looked like it was just the grounds crew cleaning up in the stands. There's, a couple dozen people scattered here and there. So
really pulling for Miami or Florida State in that one. And that has not worked out.
Well, Miami doesn't travel that well either. They don't have a big fan base. Even back in their heydays in the 80s, the Orange Bowl wasn't that full. It's a small private school. I had no idea because, I grew up in the 80s with the bad boy Hurricanes. I thought they were some football factory. I had no idea they were an uppity private school down in South Florida because that's certainly not what their image was portrayed to a teenage kid coming in. So, but yeah, I'm very interested in the SEC championship game. And it's nice that these two teams haven't played each other yet.
Yeah.
I wonder a little bit, can Georgia lose this game and still make the playoff? Probably.
They should.
but this should be a semi. This should be a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
If you don't win this game, you shouldn't advance to the playoffs. You just shouldn't. So anyway, let's get to it a little bit. The Falcons had their best running game of the season. They rushed for about 150 yards. Cordell Patterson had a season high, 2 touchdowns, season high in yards and 2 touchdowns, career high in yards and 2 touchdowns. And they averaged 5.1 yards per carry against that Jacksonville front. What are some of the positives you saw coming through this game?
It was a game where the Falcons felt like they were in control. It's kind of the Broncos situation, right? Where you didn't have to put your offensive line in obvious pass situations. You were ahead of the chains pretty often. And that meant your offensive line could be aggressive and go forward. And I thought that really helped, specifically Caleb McGarry, who has been really poor this season in pass protection specifically. I thought he had one of his best games of the season. Matthews and Lindstrom played really well. And when you had to rotate at that center position, I thought Dahlman and
Drew Dahlman
filled in well for the likes of Hennessy. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good game. A couple plays here and there where, it was the left Mayfield struggled, but I thought the offensive line handled pretty well. If only we could play the Jacksonville Jaguars every week, right? That's the big thing. But you could lean on the run game. I mean, this is what Pease wants to do, and that's the big thing. So hopefully they'll continue to figure it out. But don't know if the offensive line will look like that continually as the season goes on.
Yeah, to his credit, Caleb McGarry did have, according to Pro Football Focus grades. I like to look at the grades, but does it match up with the eye test, and where does it go? When you see that Jalen Mayfield grades a 91 against the Dallas Cowboys as a starting left guard, something's off with their math. That was something was funky there.
You have to marry the stats to the
McGarry had a better game, and it was his 79.6 was his season high by a good 7 points, coming off a 54 against the Patriots and a 33 against the Cowboys. So McGarry did step up. And you mentioned this one because I think this one has the chance to make immediate changes right now, where the Falcons don't have a whole lot of options, is Drew Dahlman at center for Matt Hennessy at center. Hennessy's in his second year. Dahlman's a rookie. And ironically, we talk enough Broncos for breakfast. Dahlman is the player that the Falcons took when the Broncos and Falcons swapped places in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So for that pick, for the Broncos to move up and take running back Javonte Williams, the Falcons took Richie Grant at safety, and then they took Drew Dahlman. So they got a starter and a half. Richie Grant starting to play that way into that role. Early on, the running backs winning that battle, but that's not too surprising. They can make a big impact early. But what did you see? You got a pretty good look at the second half when Dahlman was in. What were your main takeaways between the two of them?
I thought that the Hennessy has been kind of a little bit too finesse sometimes for how much they want to bang inside. And honestly, the biggest thing that caught my eye with his run game was the fullback usage. I thought the fullback cracked some skulls for the Falcons. I can't even remember his name off the top of my head, but running Keith Smith. Yeah, I thought that the usage.
Fullback. You've heard me say it a zillion times. I grew up in the 80s with the 49ers and Tom Rathman and the Cowboys, the next generation with Moose Johnson. They won about 8 Super Bowls between them, running a pro eye with a fullback that could knock people down and catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
I guess it condenses the box sometimes, so it makes it a little bit harder to throw over the middle as well, which you kind of want to do with the play action. Also, typically the fullback's not really much of a good weapon in the pass game.
Not everybody had Jerry Rice, Michael Irvin, John Taylor, and Alvin Harper, and it wasn't Novacek at the time. I don't remember, but Brent Jones was a tight end in there. So not everybody's got the skill position players. Hall of Famers, and then 4 All-Pro receivers to go out there and do that. So that's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and Iowa does it a heck of a lot, and it forces teams to. It really, like, if you're trying to do an aggressive play action play game vertically, I mean, if you have a fullback in there and you show a play action, everybody's triggering downhill. So you got a chance to hit some deep shots on that. But I really thought it was a good game again. Jacksonville Jaguars is an incredible opponent. Their defense looks really soft up front. I mean, one of the things with Myles Garrett is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? They've been playing a linebacker and he's been good, but when you run right at him,
Myles Jack.
Myles Jack. Yep. UCLA. Terrible degenerative knee, but he's been sticking around. But just a little bit small finesse, and when you ran right at him with a little bit more of the heavy personnel, it worked out pretty darn well in this game. Other takeaways in this game, I thought that Matt Ryan had a good game. He had a decent amount of time out there, some plays, but man, the arm. I know you always say that Matt Ryan's never had much of an arm, but there's some throws to the outside the hash marks where it's like I'm like biting my lip. It's like, man, is that what's going on? Like
Taking
that
a
should have been
long
there.
time to
Yes,
get
yes,
there.
yeah, and he's putting everything into it too. So it's a little bit. I'm putting up the little bit concerned emoji like
I
this guy
don't I
looking
just
at Matt
I
Ryan.
don't see a big difference between years past is the thing.
Okay,
He was always a guy that threw on a timing. He's the one
yeah,
that's going to throw to a spot before the guys come out of his break. He's always been that way. So I don't see a big difference and again, part of it's because I don't think he's ever had a plus arm. He's had an average arm. And
yeah,
I don't notice that big of a difference because the criticism of Matt Ryan has always been arm strength.
yeah.
Um, the one that I saw that bothered me, it was a max protect. So there were three
Took the sack.
guys in
The
the
route
routes,
concept. Yeah,
in the patterns. So, they were locked up, but he took like a 15-second sack,
yep.
in one of those plays. I'm like, come on, man,
Get
get
rid of it.
outside of the pocket and throw the ball away. That's the kind of stuff where, if I'm going to get on Matt Ryan, I'm like, you had time. I know your receivers outside of Kyle Pitts are threes at best.
Yeah.
We're talking Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus, Tajay Sharp. Those guys are practice squad players. A couple of them are coming off of there, and maybe a special teams player in here and there. And Russell Gage is okay. He's average, but you had time. Don't take the sack. You got time to figure out how to not take the sack. Don't take the sack. We've talked a lot about Matt Ryan and that contract of his. I don't see any way. I really don't. I don't see any way the Falcons are going to be able to move him. He's got $50 million coming up in the next 2 seasons. That's salary. That's not even cap hit. That's what he's going to get paid. So if you were to move him, how much of that can you get somebody to pay 25? Maybe. Well, you've got a 25 million cap hit for the next 2 seasons anyway on the dead cap, and then you've got 25 million in salary that you have to pay for somebody to take him. So you didn't save anything,
Yeah.
right?
It's rough. I mean, honestly, you need Matt Ryan to come to the rescue here as far as like renegotiating and like taking a pay cut, legitimately just like reworking the salary and like, Matt, listen, we love you. You made a lot of money doing this. We don't want to get you killed and we want you to play some meaningful football the last couple years you're going to be around. Would you work with us here and maybe take a little bit off the back end? Maybe you help yourself with some sponsors down the road because you're playing meaningful football because this team needs some help, especially in the trenches, man. I talked to you before the show. The Falcons trench play this season has been bad, but I didn't know it's been this bad. So ESPN has an advanced stat, a next gen stat that they use using GPS data called pass rush or win rate, and they have it on offense for run block win rate, pass block win rate, and on defense it's run stop win rate and pass rush win rate. Falcons are in the x-axis, y-axis, you get it. The bottom third quadrant, which is bottom left. That's where you're bad in both areas. Mm-hmm. Falcons are one of the worst 5 teams in offensive pass and run block win rate, and one of the worst 5 teams in football in actually the worst team in football in defensive run stop and pass rush win rate. There are some teams that are a little bit worse in the like purely pass rush win rate, and some that are a little worse in run stop win rate. But like Falcons, dreadful trench play.
You go across the front, and there's one plus starter, one average guy. So let's go, left to right. Left tackle Jake Matthews, average, $23 million cap hit next year, top 5.
Yeah,
average at best. Left guard Mayfield, he's a rookie. Okay, get it, but below average. Center Matt Hennessy. Pro Football Focus has him at average. I'm not so sure.
Yeah,
right guard Chris Lindstrom's been solid. He's been good. Right tackle Caleb McGarry is he needs to go. He needs to be a third offensive tackle on this team as the Falcons bring in a right tackle to replace him. Now you mentioned, taking a pay cut on this. Matt, right now if you go to Spot Rack, and by the way, they built the database that I have almost built it, not quite. That I pitched to Fox, CBS, everybody. Spot Rack built it. Good for you. You go to top salaries, top cap hits next year, and sort and Matt Ryan's sitting there at number 1 at $50 million. Cordero Patterson signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Atlanta Falcons. So he's a free agent this year. He's 30 years old, be 31 next year. Running back. That normally is something that gives you pause. Not with this guy. He's got, I think I added it up, and he's got just over the amount of touches in his career as Jamal Anderson had in his 1998 record-setting year in 1998 with like 410 carries. Cordero Patterson's only got receptions and rushes that are just over 500 in his career. So there's not a lot of wear and tear on here. Now, they're up against the cap. We know that. They've got probably just about enough right now to sign their draft class. Someone's going to come in and offer to double Cordero Patterson's money. No doubt in my mind. Couple of the options, and I haven't even talked about this much, but Matt, are you better with him or without him? How about we take $3 million off of your 50 and redo this and see if we can't keep Cordero Patterson on the team?
You would hope. You'd hope that would be the case. To talk about extending your play career and making it a little bit easier for you, especially given the average depth of target that Matt Ryan has been showing, right? Like having somebody who can make you look good. You pass it to him and then he goes 20 yards, or it's 3rd and 10, and he's getting that first down on a throw where it's well short of the sticks. That can help you a lot. So I would hope that Matt Ryan would consider something like that. We have US Dave in the house. Peter Middleton's in the house. Thanks you guys for joining us this morning. As far as a pay to trade situation, do you mean like the Teddy Bridgewater situation where the Panthers ate some of the contract and then traded him? Is that the situation?
I think so. And like I said, I don't think that does any good, because if he's got a $50 million dead cap hit next year and you're able to push that to 2 years, it becomes 20 a year. I think it's 40. I think for June, if you move him after June 1st, you can count 20 million in 2022 and 20 million in 2023. Well, he's due 50 million over those 2 seasons. So if I if I can trick somebody into giving me a 7th round pick and say, we'll pay him $25 million. Well, I've got my $20 million dead cap hit, and I still have to pay $25 million in his salary that counts against what I'm actually paying. So he's still a $45 million cap hit. That doesn't do me any good.
Man, you know me. What I would say would be, take your medicine, get it all done at 1 season.
It's 2 years.
Yeah.
You're going to play with Matt Ryan for 2 years. And then you're going to be loaded. Julio Jones comes off the book after next year. He's a 15-6.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley right now is 11-1. There's $27 million that's going to count next year, the way it stands right now, against Atlanta's cap hit. Let's just go ahead and add it up. $77 million next year, which is almost half.
Yeah.
It's about 40%. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. It's 40% of your cap.
Man, I know it's rough, but I still really think that if I could, I'd be building the Falcons next year like an expansion team. It's going to be a lot of rookies and guys that you bring in it's kind of like what the Texans are this year. They're not very good, but at least that with the fan base going in. And then we're already talking 2022 draft. That's right. But like from talking to people more in the know than I am and watching games myself, because I watch a lot of college football, that 2023 class is even going to be much better than 2022, especially at quarterback. There's also an edge rusher from Alabama who would be the first guy off the board this year. I mean, everybody loves Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau, but Will Anderson at Alabama is like a different kind of dude than both of those dudes even. So
I used to say that Alabama built their defense on exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
You're like, because 270 pounds, he can't play outside linebacker. Oh, if he moves like that, he can. Mark Barron, he's 220 pounds. He's not going to be a safety. Oh, yeah, he is. He is. The exceptions to the rule. They're freaks.
Yeah.
The exceptions to the rule. I have a question with you on this, Nick. So Ethan, DWI guys, comes in and says, redo his contract to get him out of there where he wants to go. He's already been paid his signing bonus, though. You can't get out of that unless you extend it 10 years down the line and say, okay, you're going to have a $1 base salary for the next 10 years. So even if you said, we're going to tear up this contract, we're going to redo a next one, and you're going to make $1 for the next 2 seasons, you still have that cap hit, that dead cap hit from what you've already paid him on his signing bonus.
Yeah.
So when you talk about taking the medicine, I think it's more along the lines of, listen, you're going to play him for 2 years. You're going to have him for 2 more seasons. Draft somebody this year, draft somebody again next year. And, I don't know. I mean, the only thing you can think of that could help is if he retired. And,
Yeah.
and I don't think he's ready to do that. So it's going to be tough. So, Matt Ryan's play isn't necessarily the biggest problem with the Falcons by any stretch. Just look at the offensive and defensive lines. But that contract is an albatross. It really is. And it's not just him. Deion Jones has a $23 million cap hit linebacker, top 5. You're paying $16 million next year, a dead cap to Julio Jones, the Jones brothers. There's $30 million. I mentioned left tackle. I want to say Garrett Bowles. Wrong team, Scott. Jake Matthews, 20-something million. He's average at best, 20-something million. And you can't cut him because his dead cap hit's even higher. So it's not just Matt Ryan. It's Thomas Dimitroff, former general manager, who just really, really hamstrung the Falcons.
Yeah, and just to counteract this, I guess, you talk about signing contracts. These contracts are bad not only because the dead cap hit, but how inmalleable it makes you on the roster. Because like you have the Broncos just signing Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Both of these deals, after 1 or 2 years, they are so easy to trade from because they don't have a heavy dead cap hits, and that gives you flexibility if things don't go your way.
The way I looked at those deals, Nick, based on the dead cap number and the signing bonus, I think they counted the signing bonus, some of it, to this year where they had the room. Brilliance. Yep. That's brilliant. It's like, you got your money, but we had room this year, so we're going to take the cap hit in 2021, and you're going to get your money, but now we have flexibility. You have flexibility. Now, if you want to move, we can move you without.
Wouldn't that be the case anyway, though? Because the rollover? I think it's just an accounting
I'm just not used to having a rollover or whatnot, but just looking at it, looking at their dead cap number, I'm like, there's no way that their dead cap number can be what it is based on their signing bonus unless they counted some of that signing bonus in 2021. That's the way it looked to me.
They did for sure for Tim Patrick. Not sure for Cortland Sutton, but yeah, no, you guys are. It's rough, and I feel bad because like Matt Ryan is a good enough quarterback where like you're going to win some games just because he's competent. But this team maybe really needs a full-on bottoming out, a lot of resources and thrown at draft and playing youth at it, and it's a rough spot because I just don't think you have the infrastructure in place. It's not like you're playing a bunch of developmental young high draft picks on the defensive front, right? That's just, you don't have that type of investment, and you don't really have money to go out there and pay. Like you said, this Falcons team needs a new right tackle. I guess you could use a top pick at right tackle for sure. Right. That seems like the right way to go. But typically that takes time.
It does, but it doesn't. It would be hard to not improve with a first-round pick at right tackle.
Yeah.
The way that McGarry's been playing. It would be hard. It's if you're drafting 15, somewhere there in the middle where the Falcons are 5 and 6 right now. I think I said the floor for this team was probably 7 and 10. I still feel pretty good about that. 7 and 10 gets them 15 or 16. If they get a right tackle in that spot, it would be an upgrade over Caleb McGarry. I feel safe in saying that. But speaking of old guys, let's talk a little bit about Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucs coming up.
Yeah.
8-3 right now. I watched. They were a little fortunate. They got off to a really, really slow start against the Colts, and the Colts didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah. I think Tom Brady's play is, he's still Tom Brady, right? But I feel like this team's identity on the offense is maybe starting to shift a little bit. Maybe that's some of the cold weather stuff. Maybe that's just protecting some of Tom Brady's arm. But I feel like Leonard Fournette's been somewhat of a little bit more of a pivot guy for that offense the last few weeks. He's been obviously the number 4 overall pick. Jacksonville Jaguars took him in the draft that had Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in it when they had Blake Bortles. Man, it's taking a running back that high. I know that's running backs are having somewhat of a renaissance right now, but come on, man. But he's been pretty good.
Going to be anybody though. Because I go back to the days where I said, Adrian Peterson's a freak, but going back to that draft, so Joe Thomas was a nice pick, and he didn't go number 1, but I was like, the number 1 and 2 picks in that draft should have been Adrian Peterson and Calvin Johnson. Those guys were generational. They were special. Yeah. And they fell down. I think Peterson fell down to 6 or somewhere in that
6 or 8.
And I think CJ, I think Calvin Johnson may have gone 3rd or 4th.
He went 2.
Did he go 2? Then Joe Thomas went 1. Joe Thomas
Joe
was the
Thomas
number 1
went
overall
3.
pick.
Jamarcus Russell went 1.
Oh, all right. So
Yeah.
so Calvin Johnson did go number 2 then.
Yes, to Detroit.
Okay, well, that's not bad then. That's not that
No.
bad then.
Yeah.
That's about right. But I thought the first 2 picks in that draft should have been Calvin Johnson and Adrian Peterson, and I felt pretty good. Leonard Fournette and Adrian Peterson are the 2 best high school running backs I've scouted in 25 years. So I put Leonard Fournette in that same category as an Adrian Peterson. Now, would you take, if you got Adrian Peterson and you were going to have him for 12, 15 years, is he worth a high pick? Yeah, he is.
Yep.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you have the
He's got
offensive
the heart
line
of
as well.
Adrian Peterson, though.
No, I don't think so.
He doesn't have the ticker that, he's called AD for a reason all day. He doesn't have the heart that Adrian Peterson did.
Yeah, no, but they've looked pretty good down the stretch here. Tristan Wirfs has been playing incredible football for them. I am curious to see what happens with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason. I think Ryan Jensen and Alex Kappa are going to be free agents. So that's going to be an issue with Tom Brady, obviously under center. And Tampa Bay also has a pretty good trench team. I think that I don't know why Joe Tryon's not playing more than he is because he looks better to me than Jason Pierre-Paul. Shaq Barrett's been really good, and Vita Vea. Did you see the highlight this week from Vita Vea's tooth being knocked out and like flying 20 feet in the air versus the Colts? I mean, he's a monster, but that was incredible.
I didn't see it. I'll have to check that out and watch more of this game. What I did watch was Tom Brady's got all freaking day. He's got all day. Against the Colts, and the pass rush for the Falcons isn't going to be much better.
No,
if better at all,
it'd be worse.
And you give Tom Brady that much time. Good Lord, what we knew he can do to him. And US Dave, no Jamarcus Russell jab. Speaking of heart,
too easy.
There's a phrase I use in scouting. It's that you can't measure. They say you can't measure a player's heart. It's true, and I put a qualifier in that. It says, but you can damn sure tell if he's got one or not. The players you see early in your career, they leave a mark, so it's hard to knock those guys off the pedestal. But Jamarcus Russell, I always called scouting was a lot like treasure hunting. So if I'm going through the woods and I show up down in Mobile, Alabama, and park in this backwoods place, and I see Jamarcus Russell throwing a football, I'm like, I'm done. I've found it. That's it. That's what I've been looking for my whole life. He was absolutely perfect when it comes to size, release, arm strength, had it all. Just didn't give a damn about football.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy ended up a number 1 pick, probably never watched or paid attention to a film session in his life and made it to a number 1 overall pick. Maybe the most physically gifted quarterback I've ever laid eyes on.
Yeah, what a unit, what an arm. But you got to have the heart and the brains to play quarterback in the NFL.
Yes,
and
it makes a difference in the NFL for sure.
But yeah, no, this Tampa Bay is playing good football. I'm actually looking at the there's a website called RBSDM that does a lot of tier stuff with efficiency. And they have a category called team tiers. And right now they have Tampa Bay as the 3rd best team in football right now, only behind the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals in the 2nd tier. Unfortunately, they have the Atlanta Falcons as the 5th worst team in football so far this season. So this could be a rough game. You are playing in Atlanta, and you had a game where pretty much everything went wrong when you played Tampa Bay the first time. You had some fluke plays where it looked like it was going to get out of hand quickly, and they pulled away a lot at the end. But you guys were fighting them, which I thought was pretty good. I just am curious if your defensive front 7 can weather the storm, because Tampa Bay has a really good offensive line. They look like they're leaning into Leonard Fournette a bit more down the stretch here. And I just don't know if you have enough mass. And one thing I do want to say, actually, coming back, Anthony Rush has been a pretty good pickup for you guys. I thought he had a pretty good game.
He needed size. He added size. I mentioned Jerry. I don't know if Jeremy Sean's in here, but I mentioned Wildcats. The movie. He's like Eric Finch. I don't know if you've watched that yet. He says we need size, and by God, Finch has size. But he's been a little bit more than that. When I watched that game, I was like, wow, he's got all day. So I look at the PFF grades for that game, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Donovan Smith, left tackle, 85, number 2 performer. Rob Gronkowski was actually the number 1. Number 2, the right tackle, Tristan Wirfs.
My boy. I love Tristan.
I started going down, the list, and it's like the worst guy graded was a 70. Well, if the Falcons, I don't know that the Falcons have a 70 grade other than Chris. I think they've got one whose average grade across the season is 70, and that's Chris Lindstrom. That was their worst offensive line performer. So the Falcons were in this game. The Buccaneers will give up some points, and they're not great against the pass. They're number one against the rush. That's because they're giving up all the passing yards. It's kind of like last year. The Falcons had a decent run defense. No, they didn't. They couldn't stop anybody when they needed to. They just had the league's worst pass defense. So, nobody was ever bothering to run on them. So, but at home, I don't expect Tampa Bay to overlook the Falcons, but the Falcons are playing better, and they were in this game at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, they were in this game. It'll be an interesting one to see how they perform. I don't know, man. I just don't know. You know me. I'm not trying to poop on you guys at all. I just don't think this Falcons team is very talented in a lot of the areas where it comes to big boy football. And Tampa Bay actually has the ability to play big boy football where they suck. And it was very obvious in this Colts game. I think Colts called 22 passes in a row. Is that their secondary is beat up to hell. Their cornerback room is terrible. But you are playing a lot of number 3 and 4 wide receivers getting number 1 and number 2 wide receiver reps. And your best weapon is a guy named Kyle Pitts, but like they have a guy named Levante David, and Devin Smith can play sweeper, or Devin White can play sweeper downhill. So you really match up terribly with them on both sides of the ball. You just do. It's not good.
Yeah, they're just jamming him and then bracketing him. Ethan comes in and says Pitts decreased productivity due to Ridley not being there. It doesn't help.
No.
It doesn't help when a big guy like him takes an extra second to get off the line. You're fast, but you're not quite as quick in short spaces, and you can't pass protect, so you can't give him a lot of time to get open. So, I think they need to put him in motion a little more, give him a running start. Even if it's obviously, I don't remember if you watched the old arena football, but you could actually run at the line of scrimmage to start. That'd be nice. But maybe put him in motion a little bit more, move him around some. But, someone else has to step up at wide receiver. Well, the only one that's stepping up at wide receiver is Cordero Patterson when he split out wide.
Yeah.
Who was a similar type of receiver to Kyle Pitts. Big, strong, physical.
Straight line a little bit.
So maybe Russell Gage can be something in this, and maybe Olamide Zaccheaus can be something, but I don't have a lot of hope there.
No.
Just hope that the offensive line can protect Matt Ryan, and you can take advantage of their porous pass defense, because you give any professional receiver and quarterback 5 seconds to throw, he's going to hurt you. He will.
Yeah. Nope. You're absolutely right. So it'll be an interesting game. Hopefully Matt Ryan can protect the football better than he did against Tampa last time. And hopefully that run game that saw success versus the Jags can show up. It's going to be a little bit harder. Obviously, Vita Vea is probably the best nose tackle in football right now. He's not just everybody likes, Jordan Davis is a lot of talk of the town for the draft community this year because he's so big, but like Vita Vea is so much more explosive than Jordan Davis is. And he can displace guys better. Jordan Davis just like eats space, where Vita Vea can actually get forward progress on your offensive line. And then you have probably the best linebacking duo in football. So it makes it really tough for the Falcons where they win to be successful, because those short passes, guess what? Instead of going for 10 yards, Devin White's there in 2 seconds and is cleaning things up. So I don't know. I don't know what the path to victory is for the Falcons, other than, Tom Brady having a one of those games where he turns the ball over and throws some ducks and you guys come down with it, which is possible. I mean, at some point, God, I keep saying this. At some point, Tom Brady's age is going to catch up. It has to. It has to.
That's what I like to say. At some point, age is going to catch up with me. Not today.
Not
maybe
today.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not against the Falcons. But yeah, you guys need help.
Forget the win. Okay.
Yeah.
Forget the win. It's at Mercedes-Benz. It's an 11-point game.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm like, I'm not saying, okay, the Falcons, I'll pick the Buccaneers to win. They're 8-3 against the Falcons team that is 5-6. To their credit, I think they've done a good job this year. With, again, we don't need to rehash their lineup, but I think I counted, 5 guys that are average or better starters on both sides of the ball. No, I think I did 8. So there were 7 holes on each side of the line of scrimmage of negative players. But 11 points at home. Falcons haven't been great at home. That seems a shade high to me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd want to touch this game right now. Over under at 50. I'm usually with the under on this one. The Falcons want to try and slow the game down as much as possible. The fewest possessions they can get. keep it low, and hope you can give the ball to Matt Ryan within a one-score game in the fourth quarter. That's their MO.
Yep.
That's how they're trying to win games this year. I mean, I would think somewhere, 27-13, that's only 40 points. Even if you go 31-13, 31-17, you're still at just that's too close for the line for me to pick one way or the other. But I still like the under in this game. So if I'm making my prediction, I'd say 27-13, Bucs cover, but I wouldn't bet that one. But I do like the under.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Hopefully it'll be a good game. And for the Falcons, things like this is where I'm pulling for the Falcons to do good, right? But I'm looking for the young stars to show out and guys take step forwards. Richie Grant, maybe the best game of the year for him coming out of this Jags game. I thought he flashed a couple of times downhill, which have not seen from him, at least from when I've watched the Falcons. So that's great. AJ Terrell maybe picking off Tom Brady. Maybe you see one guy like Lindstrom continue to play well, or Mayfield play well, and lean on those things. Because if you are going into this game thinking purely win-loss is I'm going to put my emotions on, you're going to have a bad time. So I had a good time, Scott. I got to get running here.
Yep.
But if anybody in the chat wants to hang out with you, obviously you can do that. I'll see you tomorrow morning though for Broncos for Breakfast to talk a little bit.
Broncos for Breakfast on Mile High Huddle on YouTube at 9:30 Eastern time.
Yeah. Both our teams playing the conference champions this week, so it'll be some tough opponents, but hopefully one of us will come out victorious.
My team plays today at 2:30 Eastern.
There you go.
So that's Chelsea. So
they're playing Juvie.
No. This is actually a rare midweek league game. They play Watford. They're at Watford.
Okay, so should be a win. I'll call it a win. All right,
man. Appreciate you, and we'll see you later. And for the rest of y'all, thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here today. If you were watching this after the fact, hop over to my YouTube channel. It's just YouTube/C/Scott Kennedy, and put comments in there. I am absolutely OCD about making sure to answer questions and ask you questions after the fact. Like I said, I don't have any good feelings that the Falcons are going to win this game, beat Tampa Bay, but 11 points over under 50, I think they can keep it close again and give themselves a chance. And when you're looking at this roster, and I said like all the holes that this roster has, a chance against the defending Super Bowl champs, 8-3 NFC South division leaders, a chance is right now about the best you can ask for. Can they sneak one out? Maybe. You never know. I don't feel good about it for sure. Tampa's favored by double digits for a reason, but I don't think this one's completely hopeless, especially after the way Atlanta played them down in Tampa. But for all of you that were here, Dave, Ethan, Little Randman, I think I missed you coming in. So good morning. Appreciate you being here today. Let's see. And I know Dirk, again, good luck this weekend. I actually went to Auburn, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm looking forward to some really, really good football between two great teams in Alabama and Georgia this weekend. But that's it for me. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.